Despite all the controversies, I do have to say that when CA's art team puts in the effort, they rarely miss. This DLC, I would say, is no exception, with some majestic monstrosities leaping into battle. My favorite of them all is definitely the Mutalith Vortex Beast. A mountain of mutated flesh trampling its foes, this warped abomination will be a strong addition to the Tzeentch roster. Stats-wise, the Mutalith Vortex Beast is very strong, with over 10k HP plus the Tzeentch barrier. Armor is not high but not low either. With 70 armor, that's enough to mitigate a lot of the non-armor piercing missile attacks, which the Mutalith Vortex Beast would be rather vulnerable to given its large model size. 66 speed, which is pretty decent, but can be chased off by a lot of cavalry. Melee attack at 58 baseline, plus the 8 of the Gift of Mutation buff. 66 attack is usually more than enough to penetrate most units' melee defense, which rarely exceeds 50. 35 melee defense, rather low, which makes sense for most single entity monsters. 460 weapon strength, a majority of the armor piercing, combined with plus 30 bonus versus large. That's 96 attack against large targets, and with the deadly weapon strength, it is definitely a powerful monster hunter. Charge bonus is pretty good at 52. Combined with everything else, the Mutalith Vortex Beast becomes a deadly melee powerhouse on the Tzeentch roster. The only weakness is perhaps the leadership, which is not the best at 65 baseline, which is still pretty decent. Now, despite the anti-large bonus on the Mutalith Vortex Beast, this monstrosity serves more as an anti-blob device for the Tzeentch army, all thanks to its very powerful auras. The first one is the Aura of Mutation, basically a Mortis engine effect, direct damage, health drain to surrounding units. The second one is the Tides of Transformation. The damage isn't as high, but the disorientated effect is very strong with the melee defense and melee attack debuff, essentially reducing surrounding units' melee stats and weakening their combat performances, allowing the Mutalith Vortex Beast to do more damage in melee and also take less damage in return. On top of that, surrounding Tzeentch troops can be a bit more effective against enemy units, all thanks to those stats debuff support. All of this allows the Vortex Beast to survive in the melee grind for a little longer, maximizing the damage with the Mortis engine effect and its high armor piercing weapon strength combined with the splash attacks. The Vortex Beast also has some disruptive melee attack animation and charging animation, allowing it to plow through blobs of infantry with each attack. Of course, with all the anti-large bonus, the Vortex Beast is still a very good monster hunter. With 30 bonus versus large combined with the Gift of Mutation plus 8 melee attack, it has a total of 96 melee attack against large targets. Combined with all its other perks like the Tzeentch barrier, high HP, and armor piercing weapon strength, it is a scary powerhouse in a monster duel. And don't forget about the disorientated effect, further debuffing their target's melee defense and melee attack, giving the Vortex Beast an even bigger advantage when fighting other monsters. On top of that, as if having a Mortis engine that can double as a monster killer isn't enough, the Vortex Beast simultaneously has a ridiculous amount of HP and access to the strongest healing spell in the game. A Mortis engine is never a problem, but a Mortis engine that you can't kill is the problem. The Vortex Beast's high HP pool plus the percentage-based healing means that a single regrowth can recover thousands of HP. All the effort spent on working down the Vortex Beast can be instantly cancelled by a single cast of an overcast regrowth, making the whole combat as frustrating as fighting Nurgle. Speaking of Nurgle, don't forget that Tzeentch also has access to Lore of Nurgle, all thanks to Changeling transforming into Ku'gath Plaguefather. Of course, there's also other characters with other healing spells available, but usually only transforming into Ku'gath is worth it, so we'll just talk about him. Ku'gath Plaguefather with his flashy abundance and 14,000 HP. Another heavyweight addition to the Tzeentch roster, combined with the Vortex Beast, that's 2 extra tanky monsters extremely hard to kill. On top of that, both monsters have Mortis engine effects, draining away their enemy's life in double the speed. No doubt this combo will be banned in tournaments because they only allow 1 Mortis engine at a time, but on multiplayer ladder, this might terrorize some of the melee-focused factions like the Vampire Counts. Strong as they are, at least the Vortex Beasts aren't invincible. They do have a couple weaknesses. The first of them is their vulnerability to missiles. They have a massive hitbox, making them easy targets and not the highest armor to mitigate incoming shots. The only issue is that you'll need enough missiles to go through all the HP plus healing, since it can easily reach heal cap with a couple of regrowths from Kairos, and non-AP missiles might just not be enough. The second weakness of the Vortex Beast is that it is actually a mortal unit of Tzeentch, so it doesn't have physical resistance, one less protection to worry about. More importantly, you can rout it. You don't have to kill all its HP, sometimes you just need to do enough shock damage to break its leadership and send something to escort it off the battlefield. Even if it receives healing, it is still not gonna come back. Before conclusion, let us cover the Regiment of Renown version of the Vortex Beast as well, the Aeson the Fallen. It has better stats and better leadership, allowing it to sustain better in combat, especially the leadership part, helping the Vortex Beast to stay in the fight longer, buying time for Kairos regrowth to finish cooldown and once again recover all those lost HP. The special feature about Aeson the Fallen is that it loses the passive Mortis engine health drain. Instead, it is replaced by an active ability. It's called a Chain Hex, Maelstrom of Change. It is similar to Fecundity, but instead of spreading healing, it spreads direct damage to enemies near the target. Personally, I think this is a much worse ability than the Mortis engine in fact, because firstly, it has a limit usage of 3 times only, and secondly, the damage is quite pitiful. You can see that we dropped it onto these skeletons, it spread to those Shapties and nearby skeletons, but the damage itself is rather negligible. So yeah, I wouldn't really recommend the Regiment of Renown Vortex Beast unless you really want that extra melee stats and leadership. Otherwise, it is better to stick to the regular Vortex Beasts and use that Mortis effect to drain away enemies' blobs. Overall, I would say the Vortex Beast is the most powerful addition to the Tzeentch roster, opening them up to a more grindy playstyle with the health drain and a massive health pool for healing. It can both clear blobs and deal with large monsters, thanks to all its passive abilities and powerful stat lines. I do think a bit of nerfing to the unit might be warranted, perhaps a little less HP, or well, the better nerf would be nerfing healing completely. Over the past few patches, we have quite a few monsters that can easily heal cap themselves, all thanks to healing being so strong right now, and the Mutalith Vortex Beast will be joining their fray. Before that healing nerf comes, I do expect the Vortex Beast to be the strongest melee piece of the Tzeentch army, constantly supported by Kairos and his regrowth healing.